Hello everybody, how's it going? Real Diversity. We are back with another video. I just wanted to talk or take a quick second to talk about real quickly the man, the legend himself, Hiruzen. I seen a recent quick disclaimer, you can treat this video like a podcast. If you see this image on the screen, that's all you're gonna pretty much see. So just treat this like a podcast. You don't have to watch this, no video or anything like that. But anyways, so I seen a video talking about Prime Hiruzen. It was just showing a clip of him fighting during the Konoha Crush against the first and second reincarnated Hokages, and people were saying, well, I'm getting what people were saying, but the point is people were pretty much downplaying this. And one thing I always had high admiration for Hiruzen was because I love this image here, not specifically this one, but anytime I see a younger version of Hiruzen, it makes me think like, golly, this is like the only guy we never truly got to see at full strength. Now, I always felt like Kishimoto was like, okay, well, it is what it is with him, and he almost always left him like conspicuous, if that makes sense. Like he was like the first Naruto series character, and after that he didn't really give him much attention, which is fine. He died there, and who really cares, right? But one thing I really did feel like they never gave him justice was all the other Hokages. Essentially, we got to see them in their prime, or at least at an age younger than 70. Now, again, I'm not too familiar with I'll admit I'm not too familiar when it comes to the reincarnation, like how strong Hiruzen was during the war. I don't know if he was comparable to his prime, or if it was still a diluted, like he's older, so he still kind of has physical limitations and that type of thing. Obviously, he didn't have any jutsu limitations, but I've always wondered, like, maybe physically, not that I don't even know if that would have mattered too much anyway, but I always wondered if he had any physical limitations, whether like we're talking about like speed feats and that type of, like, reaction feats and that type of stuff. I've always wondered if maybe he could have been higher on that, but obviously jutsu potency and that type of stuff, he pretty much was like at that level. I don't remember if he ever had if he ever summoned during the war either. It's summoned Edma, but anyways, let's just talk about like this guy's like strength. Like, he gets, I feel like, downplayed so often. The biggest thing I want to point out with him, can we talk about the man fought? Now, first of all, let's get all the facts out first. So let me backtrack. Well, people were saying anytime you reference that fight on Konoha Crush, they're always like, well, the Hokages were nerfed. And the general consensus, and can someone like, where does people get 20% from? They say they were at 20% of their power. Now, this is completely inaccurate. At the time, now that's what was, I'm assuming, was said or stated at some point later. But at the time, in that point in the series, they were at their strongest. These were Hokage, fully Hokage level power. They were at full power. And they were, because everyone watching the fight was like, this is the power of Hokage level. So they was all at Hokage level, and this is why in the series it was pretty much implied that every next generation Hokage was stronger than the previous. So this is why it was highly implied that he did not want the fourth Hokage resurrected, because he knew he was going to be outclassed if he was there. Now, because the fourth was stated to be like, he was supposed to be like the strongest character, at least at the time at that point in series, like of knowledge, like, hey, this guy is the strongest that we've ever had, like, right? So he was technically the strongest. Now, that's why he did everything he could to stop that reanimation of Minato. So that's why we didn't get to see Minato in that fight or whatever, because he definitely knew if Minato showed up, it was going to be pretty much a wrap. So, but at the time, the first and second, Tobirama and Hashirama, they were at full strength. This was later retconned when Madara became the antagonist, because, and also on top of Madara, because he was comparable to his rival Hashirama, so he had to get yanked. They had to yank Hashirama up to Madara's level when Madara became the antagonist. But also on top of that, because of power creep as well, during the time Madara became the antagonist was like during the war. So this is like when we was getting all type of crazy feats. So this is why Madara got so yanked yoinked and was feared by the nations, all that stuff. So when that happened, they had to yank and power creep up Hashirama as well, and that's when we started getting those crazy Hashirama statements, was through Madara, and that was when it was like, okay, this guy's like the god of shinobi. Now I'm not sure, because in Naruto part, yeah, and again, this is all Shippuden. So Naruto part 1, like Hiruzen was statements were true, like he was the strongest, he was stronger than whatever, he was a pretty much a god of shinobi himself in like statement wise. So he was definitely powerful in his own right, and was stated to be the strongest Hokage out of the first and the second. So yeah, it was pretty much all there for us. But of course, this was all later changed for who knows why, to fit the narrative that that they was only 20%. Now because of that, what frustrates me about that scenario is that because people are saying that, they undervalue that fight. So I want to point out something here in that fight. He literally fought 2 Hokage. Now again, the whole reason I even stated all that previously was to emphasize during this fight, he fought 2 at the time. They were fully powered Hokages. They were at full strength. There was no 20% or they weren't nerfed. It was them at their full strength. So he was fighting them on top of fighting Orochimaru. Fought 2 Hokages and a Sannin, almost Hokage level himself. Or potentially, I mean, yeah, because he could have been a Hokage. He was competing with Minato. So I would even say Orochimaru. 3 Hokages in that fight. On top of that, and he only truly really stalemated. And had he just been, as Orochimaru stated, 10 years younger, he would have won. He would have won that Reaper Death Seal tug of war. So, yeah, and mind you, through all this too, Hiruzen was 70 years old. So anytime I see this image, I'm like, he did this at 70 years old, fought 2 Hokages and Orochimaru. This dude would have been just decimated them had he been in his prime. He would have absolutely just wrecked that, and he probably would have won that fight with relative ease. So that just imagine, I just really can only fathom why Kishimoto never gave us like some type of prime. Mind you, I'm not talking about, I'm only yanking his power scale, and I'm not talking about his policies as a Hokage or political stuff with him, but we're just talking about power scaling wise. He gets so underrated, and it annoys me so much when people like to refer, because they try to even like they like, well, yeah, he had a good fight, but then they try to like say everything else, like, well, they weren't that strong and all that. So it really tries to downplay him. But this guy at 70 was really a beast. And on top of all of that, let's talk about his arsenal. This man has pretty much supposedly knows every jutsu. And I get in the early series, knowing a lot of jutsu meant a lot. I feel like later on it was more like potency of the jutsu, or like, like the type of like jutsu, like Kekai Genkais were really strong in the first series. Obviously they was okay in the Shippuden, but Kekai Genkais and knowing a lot of jutsu pretty much made you like super strong in Naruto Part 1. And he supposedly knew every jutsu in Konoha. Now again, I don't know if he can just pull outside of possession or body expansion, or even like Inu's move or anything like that. Well, I'm not sure how much he can like use or pull, but he supposedly knows every jutsu in Konoha. So that alone is crazy to me. Just being able to just pull out something just random anytime, like shoot, F it, let me boulder expansion, like that would be crazy to me. If he would just, in almost any situation, he would pretty much have like an answer to. So that's just pretty much lethal in itself. On top of that, and even like he could even in theory would know the gates and stuff like that. So imagine him just opening like the 6th gate on top of him already, just with already his other feats and stuff. So his summonings, he can use all the chakra natures. So he's pretty much able to stalemate quite a few large scale jutsus, like Tobirama's water scale. He has some high scale fire himself, earth, and obviously the other ones, I think he probably have a high scale on all the elements. You know, like high air. I would say AOE. I wouldn't just say high skill, but he probably has plenty of AOE attacks with all the natures. On top of that, he has the summon Etma, Monkey King Etma, which is the strongest summon in the series. So, strongest summon in the series. Man knows every jutsu in his village, and on top of that, he has speed feats comparable during the war to Tobirama. So I mean, the guy's crazy. The guy's crazy. Anytime I see a ranking, they always want to put him like right above. It depend on, like, let's say if there's a rank video, they usually put him if we're not using the strongest forms, like if we're not using double Sharingan Kakashi, they usually put him above Kakashi. Now that's kind of debatable too between Kakashi and Tsunade. I think Kakashi beats Tsunade. If we're talking about like later Kakashi with Purple Lightning, I think that Kakashi is actually stronger than Tsunade. So I would put him over Tsunade. And then I would put, you know, obviously I sometimes my own personal list would have Tobirama. Only person Tobirama's above is Tsunade in any list, even no matter like what. But if we're talking about strongest, to me, Hiruzen is always at worst should be stronger than Tobirama. Should always at worst. So wherever you put Tobirama at, Hiruzen should be right above him. Now I'll give Minato the, you know, whatever. I'll give Minato the advantage because I don't think not many people have answers for Minato. Hashirama even, I would give and Hashirama's obviously over Minato, but that's pretty much like how I would have it. And you know, Kakashi, depending on Kakashi's thing, you can throw Kakashi wherever you want to like rank him. If you want to say he has double MS or not, or Purple Lightning, or wherever you want to put Kakashi, he pretty much is he can be like second to last. So he's crazy to but I always have Hiruzen over Tobirama, and if you disagree, yeah, you're just wrong, because he even when they yanked up Hashirama, they didn't really yank up Tobirama too. They just kind of yanked Hashirama, but in comparison to, they were supposed to be pretty close relatively. So he kind of got a little bonus too. And then they also gave him the Flying Raiji. Obviously not as he wasn't as skillful as Minato with it, but it was still his jutsu, and he also created tons of other jutsus. So not like they all are just stupid broken, like except even Tsunade, even like sometimes like even Tsunade is the weakest, but even then like no normal like no Jonin's beating her, like you can't kill her, like you eventually if she just closes you out, which she will probably eventually close out a Jonin level fighter. Yeah, you're just done. So yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. So, anyways, this is all I want to talk about, man. I feel passionate about this today, and I was like, I really like. I gotta defend my boy Hiruzen. He really is. When I see his younger version, I'm like, I know he was a beast. I just really wish they gave us a little series like when he used to train Jiraiya and him, because even look at the size. You see, he was just a frail old man, and even when you see him in his younger days with Danzo, he wasn't that. Like his prime looks like he's the size of Jiraiya in comparison. So like this man is as huge as Jiraiya. On top of that, you know, with all this other, it would have went crazy. Him and Edma would have been untouchable. So yeah, hopefully you guys can at least agree with that. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys. Give a video a thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe, man. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace out, man.